Hey guys, welcome to a very different episode of the World Football Summit podcast. Today we're recording live from World Football Summit Europe in Sevilla, and we're going to be talking with all the leaders in the sport that are creating a better football, that are driving innovation, that are, just helping us become a more professional industry, embracing sustainability. You know it. And I'm actually very excited to do this because it's something that we've been talking about at the office for some time. And I hope you like the format. Please don't focus too much on the background noise. I would actually urge you to focus on the quality of the conversations we're going to have today, because that's the important thing. It's not about the quality of the sound, it's about the quality of what we're discussing today. And today, my first guest is going to be Nora Henriksson from Monks. I'm actually very excited because we're going to have a very interesting conversation about content, about engaging fans, about all these topics that the football industry is kind of like questioning itself every single day. So Nora, welcome to the World Football Summit podcast.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Well, Nora, you're going to have a very interesting panel, but since we're here, I knew I had to talk to you on the podcast, and I think the audience is going to get a lot from you. And I think I just want to understand first from the first question that I want to ask you is in terms of like football fandom. We always see that everybody's talking about how the fan of today is different. Over the years, how have you seen the evolution of the fan in terms of, technology, content, wherever you want to take it?
To be honest, it's a huge behavior shift. And I think it's very interesting to understand Gen Z and how they've been brought up with social media, right? So there is a reason why I think it's like 15%, they watch 15% more highlights than they actually watch games. Wow. So that's the content that they kind of prefer. And that is very interesting to me because it's not the way I consume football. And I need to see beyond. I still like 90 minutes of football, to be honest. But I need to see beyond. I need to understand how 89% of them are actually using their second screen during the game. How can we really tap into that? So there is definitely a behavioral shift, and it's very generational, but it's also happening because of technology. So, it kind of goes a little bit hand in hand, I would say.
That's an interesting conversation. You never know what comes first. Is it the fan behavior and then the technology, or is it the technology that shifts the behavior? At the end, it's kind of like a flywheel, different flywheel. And obviously one of the technologies that today everybody's talking about is artificial intelligence. And everybody's talking about how that is going to enable to create more personalized experience, to analyze data, So I wanted to see your take on that. How's that going to impact the football industry in general?
I have a very positive outlook on how it's going to affect, especially content. And then we're talking about generative AI. Because as you say, it's a possibility to maximize the output, to maximize content. So let's talk about highlights, for example. Now we're able to create highlights personalized. We're able to create many versions of highlights. We're able to create many sorts of narratives through just highlights. And we're able to do it at speed because, that's a hygiene factor when it comes to highlights. So I think that's an interesting area to just discuss how AI can evolve the experience. I also have a very big ambition for how that can almost, diversify the audience as well, because we have marketed a lot towards a male audience 15 to 30. It's not been very diverse, the content that has come out, because you had one focus and you didn't have the ability to create as much content as you wanted, But as AI is helping us leverage building more content and building more personalized content, and you mentioned data, the data we get is also helping us to build target groups out of interest, for example, interest-based target groups, and then create content personalized for that via automation in a certain speed that wouldn't be possible with human, knowledge only. And therefore, I think we can target groups, for example. To be quite honest, many female target groups that maybe hasn't felt connected to sports, also because we haven't spoken to them properly. But now we can tap into where they are, what they like, and understand their drivers and invite them to football, right? So I'm very excited about that.
You mentioned some big keywords there. You talked about speed, you talked about agility. You talked about, I guess context at the end of the day is also important to analyze. All this to me leads to think about relevance. I think what we're going to get is more content that's relevant to each different fan segments. And that's, I think, where, to put it informally, where the money is, But I guess I was wondering if there was any examples of kind of like, or what are effective strategies to actually create personalized experiences for fans?
I think we have to look at it very much from the fans' perspective, and that's where the strategy should start. But if I may just use an example, I mentioned second screen experiences before, right? And I mean, thinking of how to strategize around that, you don't want to create an experience that just takes away the attention from the actual live game, but you want something that can actually elevate the live game experience. So we did something together with Adidas already at the Champions League final 2023, where we made a bot on WhatsApp of Del Piero. So he was there. He chatted with fans. He invited friends like Steven Gerrard, etc. He shared behind the scenes, and he was chatting real time, also powered by real time data, historical data. So you had that kind of. You could leverage the knowledge of artificial intelligence. You could leverage an experience on second screen that actually gave you something extra, not only took away took away your attention from the game, but rather played the second part or became like the sidekick of the game or whatever.
Wow.
So I think that's like it's hard to just say like strategizing in general. I think each one of these things needs their own strategy. You have to think carefully about who you're targeting and who also on the other side, who is going to be part of it. So to make sure that the players are also it's resonating with them, it's resonating with the cultural relevance of the club, or, there's so many things to put into that context. So it's hard to just, say that this should be the strategy. But I think that's an interesting one where we kind of leverage technology to create something new and to create something from what we've learned about Gen Z, if you see what I mean.
That's a great example, and it goes back to what we're mentioning, keywords, relevance, context, At the end of the day, technology is an enabler, but if you don't get the context, the strategy, and you said it, strategy needs to be guided from a customer insight or a fan insight, no? So at the end of the day, these are very, I don't want to say traditional things, but I mean, it's kind of like business at the end of the day, So, and talking actually about tradition, I mean, one of the conversations that we hear is, where is the balance between tradition and innovation? Because obviously there's a lot of fans that are very, let's say, passionate about the game and how things have always been. But at the end of the day, we need to, evolve. So where do you see that conversation going?
I think we should be very careful to be conservative. I think, football made that mistakes many years ago when they thought that TV was going to steal away fans from the live experience, right? So I'm from Sweden, and we had this idea when we broadcasted Premier League, or, it was the first division of English football back then. And it was only broadcasted when there were no National League games. So when the National League started, they didn't broadcast it anymore because they were like, it's going to steal away fans, like people are not going to go to the games, etc. I mean, 20 years later, we know that wasn't the case, right? So I think that we should not be scared at all for this innovation. We should rather see it as a way to invite more fans to the real experience, which is, to be quite honest, being part of the community that is football, being at a live game, being part of a fandom, or being part of being a supporter, right?
Yeah.
That is so strong. Like, you have such a strong emotional connection to that. So that's also why I think that will never die. Even when, the content creation and the content consumption is going to change radically through tech, we are still going to want that very human experience of being connected together in a community tied to a team and the experience of football and sports.
Interesting. And you mentioned there the need to reach new fans. And I think one of the million-dollar questions is how to engage the younger fan. And you said it at the beginning as well, now fans today are watching more highlights than the live game. So in your experience, how can we tackle that as an industry?
Highlights and also understanding that there is another number, 40% of Gen Z don't watch an entire game. So we need to understand that highlights is the way many fans actually consume sports. It doesn't make them less of a fan that they don't have the patience to sit through a game, right? But you just have to think about it when you create the content around it. So that's one thing. And then, social media has been such a big mover in terms of creating a closer relationship between players and fans. And that's something we also see through research. It's so strong for Gen Z, like it's so important. And many, also Gen Alpha, I mean, many of them follow a player rather than they actually follow a team, right? They're a fan of a player. And there's a lot to learn, I think, from men's football, also to learn from women's football, because a huge strength there has been like an authentic connection with the fans. And that relationship is something to build on.
I think the values of women's football is something that a lot of people resonate with. The authenticity, the resilience. And then going back to what you were mentioning about the younger fans, I think for them, it's a different experience, but I think we just need to evolve to tailor and become more relevant to that experience. And also to your point, video games is another element that's becoming very interesting, because a lot of these younger fans, they started playing video games and then they support a club or a team because of the video game they play. So it's actually widening the funnel, the football properties, no? So it comes to a point where the intersection between sports, technology, and even culture is kind of like, it's very strong to him. So on that note, I was wondering, how does that impact football, the business of football in general, and all the content that's creating around that?
The impact of culture.
Yeah, I mean, everything, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's football is entertainment. Yeah. Like music, like any other kind of entertainment, it is culture. But what is interesting is that you can also use culture and cultural movements to create new audiences and to invite the fans to football. So, for example, I mean, it's a very obvious example, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Look what happened with the NFL when Taylor Swift showed up to the Kansas City Chiefs VIP box, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly, like, a whole new audience opened up, and there's so many interesting numbers there. So, like, football can be a cultural vehicle, or it is a cultural vehicle, but football can also tap into culture to understand, again, you know, finding fans where they are, talking to them through their lens. WNBA has also done a really good job to tap into fashion, for example, to get new fans that are interested in that and, you know, are interested in following the players, not only behind the scenes, but also like their outfits and everything. It's a different kind of audience than, you know, just follow the sports, but it's an invitation for everyone to join. So I think like tapping into culture is a really good way, and something we should also think about when we create those strategies that we talked about before.
I once read a book, and the essence of it was that football influences culture, but culture also influences football. And I think today it's very relevant, that conversation today. And I agree. I think I think football companies have become more than just organizations that play football. Their influence, the power of the athletes' brands. I mean, there's so many elements to it, you know, and how it's evolving, and it's interesting. So, but when we talk about the future, this is evolving at exponential speed, but what can we expect? And this, take it wherever you want to take it, in terms of technology, in terms of content, in terms of engaging fans, what do you think the future will bring?
I think we can expect quite a bit of disruption. When it comes to the impact of AI that goes for our whole society, and I mean marketing, it's disrupting my whole industry, right? But there is the whole content consumption that will be disrupted, that will change, that will, in my opinion, evolve in a very interesting way, and I think a very positive way for creating new opportunities for football. But then there's also the whole rights holders market that has kind of shifted, and a lot of disruption. You see like rights being like shared between different owners in a way it wasn't before, and you see the new, like the tech giants coming in as like kind of new players in the field, no pun intended. And I think that's also super interesting, because with that comes another view of innovation, because that's what they built their huge companies on, another view of content and how to speak to fans, another new expectations of what a game day experience should be, etc. That being said, it's not going to be 100% easy for the consumer, because this also means that you need to know the platforms, you need to pay a lot for different streaming platforms and maybe traditional broadcast as well if you want to be able to cover everything. But it is an interesting time, and I'm sure it will be for the better, because it's been a long time where nothing or not much has changed, and now I just see so many things, so many new initiatives, so many new things of approaching the sport. So I think it's it's not a like where we will be on the other side of that. That's hard for me to predict, but it's going to be an interesting journey for sure.
You took the words right out of my mouth. It's all about the journey. I think the challenge here is understanding, and going back to an interesting point that you said before, is the strategy needs to be based on fan insights. And as the fan evolves, properties need to understand the new needs of the fans and expectations, what is relevant for them, the context, and just adapt from there. Right, this has been a fantastic conversation. I just have 2 more questions. We're going to shift topics a little bit. The first one being, we have a lot of women who want to be and have a successful career in sports. And I think you're a great example of that. So I wanted to understand if you can share with the audience some kind of advice that you have for aspiring female leaders in football.
I do. I want to mention 3 things. 3 things that has been crucial for me, and 3 things that I try to really have in mind also myself as a senior leader. But I think it's important already when thinking about pursuing leadership at this day and age. The first one is having a growth mindset. So we talked about how things are moving, how things are kind of unpredictable in this time of innovation. You have to kind of embrace that. You have to have a learning mindset, and maybe you also have to a little bit embrace imperfection, because a lot of things are moving, and everything can't be perfect, but you should try to stay on top of having a growth mindset and be open to new experiences and learning. So that's one thing. The other thing, I think is I love being at the World Football Summit because there are so many people working here, being here that actually works with their passion.
Yeah.
So my second thing is find your purpose, because that is going to give you that extra drive to actually pursue something really great. So there is going to be times, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, there is of course days in my job too where it's like, you know, super operational, super heavy workload, late hours, and a lot of hard work is put in every day. But I find my strength in you know, thinking about the purpose I have and how how also the hard work is part of that purpose. And I get that drive from inside, if you see what I mean. So I think that is important too. And the third thing is prioritization, to manage your time. I mean, it's a very simple one, but I'm happy to be here, for example. I'm quite operational. There's a lot of things I'm missing out at the office with our clients for being here, but I prioritize it. And that's, you have to be a little strategic. I think it's very easy for younger leaders. And I've also seen this a lot with female leaders, that you're you want to do everything, and then you're not being strategic enough with your time.
That was beautiful advice. I couldn't have said it better myself. I love those 3 pieces of advice. And I couldn't agree more with everything you said. Growth mindset, embrace imperfection, purpose, hard work, prioritize and focus. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, if you're listening, I mean, golden nuggets for you to take home. One final question, Nora. Last year at World Football Summit, we lost the Republic. And basically, we believe that the football industry needs to become more professional. It needs to embrace innovation and really just also set sustainability as a priority. And when I speak about sustainability, it's 3 pillars. It's the financial, the social impact, and the environmental. And all of this, we summarized it under the claim that said the football we want and the football we need. If I were to ask you to summarize very briefly, just 1-2 sentences, keywords even, just a tweet, how would you summarize the football you want or need?
Community-driven, not afraid of innovation, and true to its core and fancy.
That was beautiful. I love that. And actually it resonates with a lot of definitions I get from top leaders. So I'm happy to see there's common patterns between you guys. So, you know, thank you so much, Nora. This has been a great conversation. I was really looking forward to it, and I think it over-delivered. I want to thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the event.
I will, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.